Nostalgia is a powerful thing. With games seemingly becoming worse as the years go by, it's easy to yearn for the times when games were better. Often this means revisiting games from one's childhood, but it's not uncommon for those old games to not be as great as some people remember them. People can usually look past the flaws and enjoy them for that nostalgia, but what about those who don't have any nostalgia? What is the value of old games for someone who is looking for something new to play? Well, I think that the value comes from three things. Those being watching a series evolve over time, playing with long forgotten design decisions, and playing games in the same series that are very different from their newer incarnations. As a series gets older, it becomes harder to remember where it all began through all the shiny graphics and modernized gameplay. Nowadays, it's hard to believe that a game like Yakuza 0 had its beginning with, well, this. But going back to play Yakuza 1 is special in its own way. Sure, the combat is unrefined, the sub-stories are samey, and the English dub is terrible, but it's part of what gives it its charm. Watching the series get better gives you a unique kind of appreciation that you don't really get from just watching a retrospective. Playing Yakuza 0 after experiencing this evolution makes the game much more satisfying, because you get to see all the ideas that the RGG team have tried over the years be refined and come together to form a fantastic game. But it's not just watching a series get better over time that makes playing old games interesting. Sometimes you might find that an older game in your favorite series used to do something unique, but that something has gone away. If you want an example of an old design choice that probably won't ever come back, you can't look further than the fixed cameras in old Resident Evil. No, seriously, you can't look any further than this. While this kind of camera necessitated a control scheme that's seen as archaic today, the camera itself still offered two unique benefits that you don't get out of more traditional camera angles. The first is creating a unique kind of tension through a lack of visuals. Hearing but not seeing an enemy from certain angles can put the player on edge, and they're likely to approach the next angle much more cautiously or try to use auto-aim to get a rough idea of where the enemy might be. A similar trick can be achieved with a first or third person camera, but what makes a fixed camera special is that the player has no idea how much they'll be able to see with the next camera angle. When used poorly, this kind of camera leads to some pretty cheap deaths, but when used correctly, it creates an atmosphere that is truly special. The other benefit of a fixed camera is that it allows for the use of pre-rendered backgrounds. While they do limit how much interaction the player can have with the environment, they are more than capable of standing the test of time. A game like Resident Evil 4 may not look bad, but it is starting to show its age graphically. By contrast, the Resident Evil remake still looks excellent today, even if you go back and play the original GameCube release. A fixed camera has undeniable flaws, but it also has undeniable benefits that sadly aren't put to use nowadays outside of indie games. But despite these changes, Resident Evil has remained a survival horror series. It just started to do its horror in different ways as time went on. What about a series where the gameplay of the old and new is vastly different? The focus on grinding for gear and mastering hunts through repetition has never gone away, but the way old and new Monster Hunter approach this appeal is very different. The focus of an old Monster Hunter, like Monster Hunter Freedom, is patience. Most attacks are slow, healing forces you to stand still for a few seconds, and because of the hitboxes, you have to think very carefully of when to go in for an attack, as one wrong move can easily take out half your health. Preparation also plays into this, as forgetting the right items or even forgetting to eat can turn your hunt from 15 minutes long to 25 minutes long. Generally, you have to think very carefully both inside and outside the fight if you want even the slightest shot at succeeding. New Monster Hunter, on the other hand, is about speed. Much of what gave the old games their identity has been simplified. You can now move while healing, attacks are faster and more varied, and hitboxes are mostly better. Preparation is far more forgiving as well, as the tent allows you to access all of your items without any penalty, so there's very few instances where you'll need to abandon a quest because you forgot something. Generally, Rise bears more resemblance to traditional action games where much of the decision making happens inside the fight, and intense preparation is more of a suggestion rather than a strict requirement. I won't try to argue over which gameplay style is better, as I personally think they both have their ups and downs. What's important is that they are different gameplay styles. Despite being in the same series and centering around the same goal, Freedom and Rise are vastly different experiences, and that alone makes Freedom worth playing today. Old games aren't always outdated relics. While they often aren't amazing, they are more than likely worth your time. Sometimes an older game can change your perspective on your favorite series or make you advocate for design decisions that you end up liking. At the very least, I can promise you you'll get something out of it. So don't be hesitant to try a game that's 15, 20, or even 30 years old. If you are, you might miss out on the value of old games.